Dr. Stephanie Jones, who will be presenting about leadership in crisis. Dr. Jones is an associate professor of organizational behavior at Maastricht School of Management. Before we start, let me share my slides. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen already. All right, let me start. So first of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Emif Mitasari as the student counselor of Untitled Neso Indonesia. Again, welcome to all the participants who are joining us today. And for those who don't know, we have this event regularly every Wednesday and Friday. So every Wednesday we have an online learning, and Friday we have a session where students and alumni sharing their experience in studying and living in the Netherlands. So in today's online learning, we have a lecture from Maastricht School of Management, and the topic is leadership in crisis. So just yeah, a little bit a short description on the lecture itself. So we will be um, yeah, we will be discussing about working from home challenges, and then we have cultural differences during lockdown, returning to work anxiety, and so on. So everything will be presented by Dr. Jones. So before I move forward to read a biography of Dr. Jones, I would like to introduce you to Nufik Neso. So for those who don't know already about our organization, we are a independent and non-profit Dutch organization that support internationalization in education. And as a Dutch organization, we are funded by the Dutch government and specifically from the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Science. And we have approximately 9 representative offices around the world, and one of them is in Indonesia. So for your information, Nufik Neso itself is short for Netherlands Education Support Offices. Now, so what are the main activities that we do? So the first one, we do a study, providing a study in Holland information and student counseling for prospective Indonesian students. We also promote cooperation between the higher education institutions, between Indonesia and the Netherlands. We also support NL alumni network. So that means if you graduate from a Dutch university, you won't stop your connection with the Netherlands just there, because we also have a lot of activities that support the alumni, such as the career fair, NL alumni talk, and so on. And then we also manage some scholarship programs, such as Student in the Netherlands, Orange Knowledge Program, Orange Tulip Scholarship, and EU Share. And lastly, we also facilitate scientific research collaboration between Indonesia and the Netherlands. So those are some of our activities. If you would like to know more about study in Holland, or would like to do some consultation with us, you can contact us via those platforms that are available in our slide. You can go to our website or social media channels, and you can also contact us via the email and our telephone number there. Sorry. Next, we also have an online counseling every Monday to Thursday. This is an online counseling done through Zoom. So you can just access the link there, bit.ly/ocneso, and then you can just follow the steps that we have on our website. Other than that, we also have a digital brochure that is also available in our website. You can access it through bit.ly/dbnufikneso. So yeah, in our brochure, we have a lot of information about study in Holland, the scholarships that we provide. And if you would like to do a PhD research, you can also find that information in the digital brochure. Yes, so that's the end of my presentation. And now I'd like to continue with our main program for today's session. So before that, I will allow me to read Dr. Jones' biography first. So Dr. Stephanie Jones was appointed as Associate Professor of Organizational Behavior at Maastricht School of Management in January 2007. From the United Kingdom, she graduated with a PhD from University College London and a bachelor's degree from the London School of Economics. Dr. Jones has authored over 30 full-length internationally published books on business and management, three of them which Professor Jonathan Gosling of the University of Exeter in the UK. Their 2012 book, Key Concept in Leadership, was nominated as one of the top 10 books on leadership that year. She teaches MBA students across the world, especially courses on leadership, culture, and change. Her teaching locations include Kuwait, Egypt, Yemen, China, Vietnam, Peru, Colombia, Suriname, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and several African countries. With a background in managing business in recruitment, consulting, and training operations in China, India, the Middle East, Australia, and New Zealand, Dr. Jones gained extensive experience in the corporate sector before returning to academia. She now actively supervises doctoral and master's students around the world, assessing and evaluating their thesis. Dr. Jones is a discipline head at MSM and a member of the examination board. So please welcome Dr. Jones. Good morning.
Hi, thank you very, very much, Emmy, for the nice introduction. And if that's okay, I'll just go ahead and share my screen.
Yes, go ahead. I just stopped my screen.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, without further ado, please continue with the presentation, and we will see you after your presentation.
Okay. I hope everybody can see my slides okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I'm very happy to be almost in Jakarta this afternoon, and I'm sure your weather is much better than here in Britain, and I really wish I was with you all in person. Anyway, I'd like to share with you this masterclass about effective leadership during the COVID pandemic, which has changed everything in the world, as I'm sure all of you are only too well aware. And here is our school, MSM. Oh, hold on, I'm having a bit of a problem advancing the slides. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now, this is these are happy memories of a real class at our school, and you'll see there's a number of Indonesians in the class you probably recognize, especially on the front row. And you can see how very cosmopolitan and international we are at Maastricht School of Management. And this is a Master of Science in Management class. They're slightly younger students. And this is a typical MBA class, and this is in the middle of our building, walking down from the lecture theatre. So we do hope to see a number of you with us in MSM, and we're hoping that the school will be opening in the next few months and we'll get back to normal. But meanwhile, we're facing this global pandemic of the coronavirus, which is like a shadow over the whole planet. We have had to cope with very big changes in our lives. So many of the workplaces are now opening, but very slowly and carefully. You can see that our school, Maastricht School of Management, in the south part of the Netherlands, it's looking very quiet in this picture. Usually it's loads and loads of students, and you can see a couple of bicycles there, and you can be sure that those bicycles will be ridden all over the city. So many of us are now working from home, and if you're lucky, you have a nice place to work from. But if you're not lucky, you're just looking at an empty wall. And I think that's a bit depressing for some of us. Uh, our leaders are facing very big challenges. And, the name for a CEO, typically the chief executive officer, you could say that now the CEO stands for chief empathy officer, because this is, a very big element that you need to be an effective leader under COVID. And chief exploring the unknown officer is another way of looking at it. Okay, so we must be positive. We've got to carry on with our jobs. As executives, we have to have empathy with our people. We have to be able to respond to them and help them to understand this very challenging, difficult situation where we don't know the outcome and it's not over yet. So, many people in Indonesia, I know, can speak Chinese, and you'll see these characters, and it'll be very familiar to you that the Chinese word for crisis includes opportunity. Okay, it's danger, but it's opportunity, and crisis is a terrible thing to waste. It gives us all kinds of chances to do new things in a different way, and it is a catalyst for change. So we mustn't think about it just as a bad thing, even though that it seems quite negative. And there's also an expression, cometh the hour, cometh the man, or cometh the woman, because in a time of great crisis, this produces extraordinary talent. So again, we must try to see the best of this. Okay, now, if we have people working for us and they're working from home, they may be very harassed, and they may be too busy and, concerned about trying to do their job and handle lots of other domestic crises at the same time. And they may feel overwhelmed with too many conflicting demands, with too many people wanting lots of uh, efforts from them, and they're stretched in all kinds of directions. So many people like this lady, looking after children as at the same time as trying to hold down a job, especially with the children being always at home and not there's creches and childcare not being available, and this has put huge strain on many people trying to do their job and have a family at the same time. Also, and this is a picture of myself and my partner. His mother is 95. Uh, it's a worry for him to look after her and care about her, and it puts a lot of strain on carers. So everything has changed completely in that area. Now, working from home, uh, okay, it may be new for your experience. You may be used to going to the office and seeing all your colleagues and staff members and team members every day. And sometimes the companies have not allowed the organizations to manage the working from home before. And many people have never had a working from home discipline or routine or place where they can work, which is quiet and where they can concentrate. And sometimes this is really hard for people to make an adjustment to working from home. And you'll see at my desk here, I've got a clock on European time because I'm in UK, but nearly all the time I'm working in Europe, or like now I'm working in Asia, and handling time differences is another challenge. Now, some people have become very negative whilst they've been working from home, and they fall out with their loved ones, uh, and they've got to actually try to be positive before and proactive before they can help anyone else. Uh, Now, one thing which has been a huge benefit of the pandemic has been the advancement in technology. And here we are right now on Zoom, in the Zoom environment. And maybe a year ago, some of us had ever heard of Zoom. We didn't know how to use it. We didn't know how it worked. And that has changed a lot for all of us. And we've explored all these very many different platforms, Slack and Teams. Skype is an old one, but there's a Google Meet and dozens of new platforms that we use to communicate, which we may not have used before. Okay, now in many surveys about working from home, people miss the collaboration of being with other people. They need the stimulus of the workplace, physical contact with others, and they lose motivation. And as a team leader, we need to be very much aware of this and help people to keep their motivation levels despite their isolation. So, being a leader in the COVID situation, being a chief empathy officer, what are our priorities? Uh, we must try to motivate people, but we must not hide the truth, because the reality is that this situation is still happening and it may do for some time. We mustn't say that everything is perfect, because it will not be, and we'll have challenges. And rather than talk all the time, we actually should be listening to what our people's issues are, what their worries are. How much can they do of their job in the lockdown situation, with need for caring of children and old people and things like this. So uh, one of my colleagues said that some of his team members can only really work about 2 or 3 hours a day, because they've got too many other domestic responsibilities and can't do anything about it. And we just have to cope with that. So our main question is, how can I help my people adjust to what we see as what we call the new normal? This is getting to be a bit of a cliched expression now. Okay, so think about what's been happening. Is this a mega trend change, a game changer? Is it an incident? And years from now, we'll look back and say, oh, that happened, but it's all gone. Or will things change forever because of this? And it could be that we don't travel to meetings so much anymore because it's so much easier to do them online. And maybe things won't go back to the old ways. Now, one of the topics I study a lot and I teach a lot is about cultural differences. And I would suggest that high power distant cultures, like Indonesia, like China, Vietnam, um, these cultures are used to their leaders giving them a lot of instruction and direction. And meanwhile, they're very often collectivist cultures as well, rather than very independent and individualistic, and like to work in groups. They're high uncertainty avoiding. They don't like not knowing what's happening. They are relationship oriented. They're affective. They show their feelings and emotions. And these different cultures are accepting and dealing with the pandemic differently than others. And I've noticed some of my students who come from very collectivist cultures, they suffer a lot from being isolated, much more than, say, Dutch or British people who are much more individualistic and don't mind being on their own. So we need to think about people's cultural differences. And you will have heard of this expression, living in a VUCA world. Well, this is big time now. And the VUCA concept has taken on a lot of credibility in these days: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And these are very uh, important concepts for us now. Things are moving very fast. We don't know what's happening. It's much more complex and more difficult and challenging than ever before, and we don't know what's happening. So as leaders, we have to operate in this Vuca way with vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. So this is another nice way to remember about Vuca. And for some leaders, this has now become quite difficult, and it's a big sea change for them. Many research projects have focused on changing leadership patterns during this time. And McKinsey, the famous consulting firm, talked about this idea of centered leadership, where we need to center our focus on mobilizing others in these difficult circumstances. And centered leadership includes inspiring people, seeing problems as opportunities, networking, engaging, and sustaining people's levels of energy to keep them excited and engaged. Now, across the world, companies are trying to go back to normal. And Cloudera is a famous big data company. One of my friends there was a year ago, they were saying, oh, you know, we'll be back to work by about the summer of 2020. Then they put it back to October 2020. Now they're starting to talk about not going back to the workplace until 2022. And they did a survey of the staff, and 75% wanted to stay working from home. So it may be that they let go some of their offices and don't ever go back to the same way that they worked before. Johnson Controls, which is a smart buildings company, and it's featured in that picture there. They were going to go back about just less than a year after the pandemic started, and now they're looking at later this year. And this is tough on people because people like certainty. And if all their bosses can say is, well, let's think about it again a month from now, that's not what people want to hear. So that's really tough. So trying to plan during an uncertain environment. Okay, now let's look at a couple of crisis leader examples. And this gentleman, Arne Sorensen, is a CEO of Marriott Hotels. Now you can imagine his job is not that easy right now because even though Marriott is a very old established company, nearly 100 years old, it's facing some of the biggest challenges it's ever faced in its whole history, and suffered a 90% decline in business as nobody can travel, and they've had to reduce all their costs. They have frozen their hiring, and you know, a lot of people have agreed to big pay cuts, and lots of properties have been closed or only just a few areas open, and there'll be no new hotels opening for some time. And they're very keen to welcome the world again, but when things will get better, nobody really knows yet. And there's a very nice YouTube video that you can watch featuring Arne Sorensen, and he's talking to his staff. And I think he's a very good example of a leader in crisis because he's very modest, empathetic, compassionate, caring. And this is what we need right now. Another crisis leader is Greg Forran, the CEO of Air New Zealand. And then you can imagine what it's like for an airline and nobody traveling. Now, New Zealand's very lucky because they don't have any COVID, but it's because they've been very careful and they have closed their borders and nobody can go. And this is tough for me because I have a home in New Zealand where I go to during the European winter because I don't like the cold. And it's beautiful and lovely. It's like Indonesia in places, and it's kind of warm and sunny like Indonesia. And some of you probably have been there, and you know what a lovely country it is. Well, we can't go there right now. So the airline's not doing very well. And their revenues were quite high, 6 billion New Zealand dollars. And that's about 2 New Zealand to an English pound. It would be about 1.5 to a US dollar. Anyway, they were flying 18 million customers a year, and now it's a tiny fraction of that. Now, they have a very nice strategy, which I think you'll like: survive, revive, thrive. And they've made a plan. So they first of all had to survive. They hit revive late last year. And now by the middle of next year, they're hoping to be a thriving business again, although they never expect to be as big as they were before, and have changed their strategy somewhat. Okay, now how do we help people to manage re-entry anxiety? People are worried about the pandemic and the chances of catching it. Okay, we now have vaccinations, but we're still discussing the effectiveness of those, and we're still trying to roll out vaccination. Here in the UK, about a third to a half of the country have been vaccinated, but other countries are lagging behind this. And of course, there's new strains of the virus coming through all the time. Okay, so how do we manage re-entry anxiety? We try to ensure people's well-being, the information about the health measures, hand sanitizing, wearing face masks, all those kind of things, and training for leaders to make it the workplace as safe as possible, and flexibility in working routines with people's domestic challenges still there. So we're hoping that MSM will open again soon, and the Netherlands will stop its curfew, which is 9 o'clock at night, and things will open up. And Carnival and all those lovely things were all missed this year, which is very sad. Let's hope we get back to normal. And anyway, as I said at the beginning, leadership comes to the fore in a crisis, and leadership depends on your personal preferences and context. There's some 7 basic rules of being an effective leader, and there's 3 basic goals. So when you think about your leadership skills and your leadership style, and this is all inspired by some of the work I've done on leadership, like this book that I wrote with my co-authors. And we looked at the 5 issues of leadership. What's your personality, your behaviors, your preferences, because you must be authentic to yourself. How about the people that you lead? What's their level of motivation and experience, and are they a diverse group or more homogenous? What are the tasks that you need to do? Do you have short-term projects or long-term? What are the challenges you're facing for continuity or change? And what's the economic context? And now we're about to go into looks like a worldwide big economic slump, and that makes a big difference to the way that you need to respond as a leader. Okay, here are 7 very basic rules. I've tried to work out ones which can be applied to many situations, but basically you need a plan and a strategy. You allocate tasks according to if people are ready, willing, and able. You think through the logistics and resources you need. You brief everybody in the team. You delegate, but you lead from the front. You communicate constantly, and you try to create a happy and efficient team. An efficient team is a happy team, and a happy team is an efficient team. And it depends on your goals. Now, it could be that you want to get to the top of your tree and to be a very effective senior leader with status and fame. Or you may be a more selfless leader, trying to help others and add value to the world. Or it could be that you just want to make some money here and now, be a bit comfortable and have all nice things. It's okay to have any of those goals. But to be a crisis leader, okay, now in a crisis, what is the best thing we can do? What's the worst case scenario? What might go wrong? What's most likely to happen? And crisis leaders who may have a military background, they start off thinking about this. And what are we looking for in a crisis leader? And many companies hired crisis leaders a year ago, and these people are still very much in place. So what are the job objectives of a crisis leader? They need to keep the organization going, keep the customers and suppliers happy, and keep all that show on the road. adapt the business to new demands, new products, new services needed, changing environments, new growth opportunities. Some companies are growing very strongly under COVID, such as Amazon, people shopping online. Make a new strategy for the business and get the buy-in from all the stakeholders. And stakeholders, as you know, are not just the owners of the business, but the employees, the community, the suppliers, the customers, people whose livelihoods depend on that business. And crisis leaders can have a certain personality. They tend to be quite competitive, but they need to build relationships and accommodate different people's needs. They can be sometimes compromising, they can show some flexibility and adaptability, but they cannot avoid what's happening. They've got to address the situation. They need to be good at creative problem solving. They need to be able to coordinate between different resources. Being a generalist and being able to see challenges and issues from very many people's different points of view. Be able to assess and monitor risk, take a strategic view, be a transformational leader, helping people to evolve and grow during the crisis, and seize the moment. Get on with it. Don't delay. Grasp what's happening. Have a project-based mindset. Because managing the COVID is like a project. Okay, it's got a beginning, a middle. We haven't seen the end yet, but there will be. And we've got to believe that. And it's urgent and it's all happening now. So what kind of experiences are we looking for in a crisis leader? Somebody who's been a change agent, who's managed crises before, worked in disaster relief, in earthquakes and volcanoes. You've had enough excitement in Indonesia. It's a long time since you've had the eruption of was it Krakatoa east of Java, but that was in the 19th century. But nevertheless, you've had your domestic and natural crises as well. There are different teams with tasks and challenges, and they all have to be managed. And if you're interviewing a crisis manager, ask them, what is the biggest challenge you ever faced? Have you survived in very difficult economic situations? Have you helped people in a military crisis or a natural disaster, like a tsunami? And a few days ago, we had a big crisis in New Zealand with an earthquake and a tsunami, but nevertheless, thankfully it blew over. But have you been able to achieve short-term success? And can you plan and strategize in an emergency situation, a constantly changing environment, allocate tasks, brief teams, lead by example, have an upbeat, positive approach, take responsibility? And a lot of this is based on this book that I wrote with my colleagues, and I've marked in red here some of the characteristics of a crisis leader. Accommodating, intuitive, participative, involved, can work be behind the scenes or lead from the front, broad-based, change-oriented, leaderholic, want to be a leader, coach people, lead all kinds of people, cooperative, manage diversity, manage volunteers. Lots of people working in the crisis are volunteers. Emotionally high level of emotional quotient, generalist, extrovert or introvert, any kind of orientation, worldly, goal-oriented, people-oriented, shaper, push people, relationship-driven, inspirational, can see this as an interim situation which has to be fixed right now, can be reflective, project-oriented, can look at people's individual issues, nurturing, and able to support people, and based on principles. Anyway, I hope that's been interesting for you. I'm stopping sharing now, and I'm very happy to hear from anyone, and I would try to answer any questions that you'd like to ask. And I hope you found that interesting and useful. Thank you very much for listening, or hope you were listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Jones. Very much interesting lecture we have today about leadership. So yeah, as you heard from Dr. Jones, we are opening the session for Q&A. So we invite you, for those who would like to ask, you can send in your questions through the chat box, or even if you'd like to, you can also raise your hand. You have a button there that you can click, and then we will give you the feature of the microphone, so you can ask directly to Dr. Jones. Yes, let's wait. Also, I haven't mentioned yet in the beginning of the session that we also have Julia here. I think, well, she's not here anymore. I see the participant list, but she was she is the recruitment officer of the MSM. So if you also have questions regarding MSM, you can also send in your question here in the chat box, so I can send to Julia about this. Okay.
I'm also happy to answer any questions about MSM that anybody might like to ask, because I've been working there, as Emmy said, since 2007. So I've met lots and lots of students from all over the world with all kinds of different issues.
Yes. So you heard Dr. Jones. She also will be able to answer your questions about MSM in general. Okay. So while waiting, I think if you allow me to ask you a question, Dr.
Yes,
Jones,
please.
I have also questions. In your opinion,
Just a second, we've got a question in chat.
Okay.
New and young leader. Let's park that one.
Great.
And you ask me your question, Emmy.
Yes, I will. I think I will read Putri's question first. She asks, what if the new and young leader to adapt the crisis situation, and when he or she don't have any experiences?
Wow, this is a difficult one, because when I talked about the leader and looking for a crisis leader, looking for people with these kind of experiences, but I realized that there's going to be a situation where people don't have much experience. However, even somebody who's led like a sports team, perhaps when you were at college, even when that team has been defeated and you've tried to raise everybody's morale, I think that kind of experience is still relevant. Even if you looked after younger siblings and supported your parents when you were small, even that experience is valid. And I think anybody who feels like they want to help, they feel driven and motivated to help, even if they don't actually know what to do. Actually, finding out what to do is not not difficult. That's the easy part. It's being taking a sense of responsibility. It's having a sense of empowerment, having a feeling that I'm not just going to stand around and wait to be told what to do. I want to take charge and help others. I think even just that feeling, which could be in people of any age, even kids in the schoolyard, there's always a kid who wants to lead, and those basic talents will come out in a crisis situation. So I think it's personal, behavioral preferences to care for others, take responsibility, care about motivating others, not just sitting around and waiting for things to happen. Seeing somebody struggling and rushing to help them. This kind of mentality is the basis of being a crisis leader. But that can be in anybody of any age. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I can't remember the name of the lady the person who asked. Vuca. Okay.
Yeah, is that
Putri?
answering your question, Putri? If not, oh yeah, she answered yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh, there I can see her little screen with
Love,
a
yeah.
orange crown. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you, Putri, for your questions. So yeah, we encourage you for others to ask your questions, or if you have any statement that you would like to share with us, you are very welcome. But while waiting, as mentioned before, I have a questions for you, Dr. Jones. In your opinion, do you think, young youth like us, do you think leadership skills is crucial for us to have?
Yes. Uh, well, um, and also it's interesting looking for, what are leadership skills, how to look out for them, and of course there's many different kinds of leadership skills as there are people. And I think we mustn't think that the only people who can be leaders are those who are noisy and confident and very gregarious, have lots of friends, and who are very assertive. There are people who have other behaviors who are just as effective as leaders, who, who have different kinds of leadership skills. And they may, as long as you can engage other people, it doesn't matter how you do it. And you could be a quiet leader, you can be a servant leader, as well as being a very proactive leader or a very um, demonstrative leader. So there are very many different types of leaders, um, but it's all about being authentic to yourself and wanting to uh, help others and engage others. And we can see that as an element of leadership. And of course, leadership is it's a person, it's a job you do, um, and it's a process by which you achieve results. So we can talk about leadership in many, many different contexts. And does that answer your question a bit, Emmy?
Yeah, I'm actually interested with what do you mean by a silent leadership? Sorry, a silent leader. Can you
Servant
discuss?
leader.
Sorry,
Wasn't silent leader, but servant leader.
a servant leader. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just interested. Could you perhaps give us some example of those leaders?
yeah. Now, servant leaders are people who see themselves as serving their country or their company. And I think quite a good example would be like Nelson Mandela in Africa, the Mahatma Gandhi in India, because they saw themselves as serving their people. And their people who looked up to them, they regarded as more important than them. Now, the opposite of a servant leader is somebody who wants to be a leader for ego, and because they want to have the status and importance of being a leader. But the opposite of being it's like being a servant of others. So you exist to help others to achieve their needs. Um, Someone like Mother Teresa, also in India. Um, Existing to help others in their needs. And many of the religious leaders, um, the Prophet Muhammad saw himself as a servant leader, and Jesus Christ. So very many of the religious leaders had this style of leadership. Okay, they were messianic. They were like a messiah. They inspired people, but they saw themselves overwhelmingly as servants. And we do see some people like this in the business world. They're not always that well known because they quietly go about helping everybody in their company, and they often don't make the headlines, but they are nevertheless doing a very special job. And does that help you a bit, Emmy, to
Yeah.
understand that concept?
So I have a more clearer picture about the type of the leaders. Yeah. So yes, we have another question here from Putri. Uh, Her question is, what if we have a, let's say, not good leader, but we are working with the person? What should we do? Do we need to remind him or leave the job? This is funny. Okay.
Mhm. Or leave. Okay, it depends on how you define good leader. I tend not to use words like good and bad, but things like effective and ineffective. And maybe a not good leader is somebody who is just not effective. They're just not doing anything. And there's a famous theory of leadership, transactional and transformational leadership. And transactional leaders who, they just, okay, you come to work, you get paid, you do your job. And that's all, compared with a transformational leader who improves you. And it could be that not good leader is somebody who's just very transactional, but also it could be that not good leader is somebody who does nothing. They just sit in their office all day and don't make decisions. And that's certainly an example of an ineffective leader. And there are plenty of people who are like that, or they only make decisions in a dire emergency. And have to be forced into a corner before they make a decision. And okay, what to do about someone like that? Well, what tends to happen in that situation is that people who are not the leaders start to make their own decisions, and that could be good or bad, because you have, if you're a junior person and you're deciding on things which perhaps are too important for you to decide, but somebody's got to do it, so you do it, then you're sort of taking responsibility, but you haven't got the authority to do that. And of course, you'll worry that you'll be in trouble. But nevertheless, somebody's got to do it. So sometimes in a crisis situation, people come to the fore. They rise up in the organization because they're willing to make a decision, even though they're not the leader. When we say not good leader, it could be somebody with a position of a leader, but they don't have leadership characteristics like caring about others, taking responsibility, inspiring, those kinds of things. So it could be that if you want to be a leader and the current leader isn't doing anything, and you show that you have leadership talent, then maybe you should stay in that job because you might shine and look really good and show your responsibility and your ability. And then your big bosses may notice and promote you. So it could be your golden chance to get promotion. But I can see that that's a bit scary, and it might be a better idea to leave and join an organization where you're working with a leader from whom you can learn and get better in your work, and who can help you to be transformed and can give you confidence. But many of us have ineffective leaders, and we just have to get on with what we do. And we have to cope with not knowing really what's happening and make the best of things and be positive and just engage the people around us. And sometimes we can't just leave because there aren't any other jobs. And, if we could get another job easily, then maybe we could. But I think we need to ask, why is this person not a good leader? What's stopping them? Maybe they're nervous about the responsibility they've got. Maybe they haven't been trained in how to cope. Maybe they just lack the interpersonal skills. Maybe they just got comfortable and don't try anymore. So I think we need to think about why they're not a good leader and what's the definition of a good leader for you. And try to think in terms of effectiveness, not just good and bad. Because remember, leaders, some of them are effective in some situations, but not in others. And it could be that a leader who's quite effective in a normal situation of continuity is not coping with the coronavirus pandemic. So they used to be a good leader, but they're not anymore. So why? Okay, that's a rather long answer to perhaps a simple question. Sorry about that, Putri, but I hope that helps you.
But
Oh, thank you.
sometimes sometimes you also need to learn from each other, yeah, from your work colleagues to be a good leader. Is that true as well?
Yeah, because you can see if somebody asks you who is the best leader in the company, and you might just instinctively say, oh, like Amelia or Christella or Amanda, whoever else is here, because you've observed how they interact with others, and you get a very good positive feeling from that person, and you notice that they take responsibility and they follow up, and they don't leave things hanging and undealt with. And if I look at my work colleagues, sometimes I think, oh, who is most effective, uh, and I can see that some people have actually come a long way in this crisis, and have come up with initiatives, make people feel better, and have been adaptable. And I've also seen people who are not effective because they're selfish. They just care about themselves and not about others, and or they just are negative all the time and complaining and about their own personal problems, and not caring and not seeing a bigger picture. So I think it's a very good question to ask. Who of my colleagues has come out well from this? Who has come out badly? And which people amongst my colleagues have taken this as an opportunity to learn and grow? And because I think what is your attitude to this pandemic, it also identifies who you are. It says a lot about you. If you're a positive person and you've been able to stay positive during this pandemic, well, then you really are a positive person. Whereas if you're a negative, grumbling, moaning, complaining person, well, then you'll be even worse now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very good idea from Emmy, to look around at those with whom you work and see who's managing, and who's got strength of character, and who's a really caring person, and who's coping at this time.
Yeah, very much agree with that. So we have a question here from Ardini. She well, of course, she thanks for your presentation, and her question is how far the leader gives tolerance to the employees when it leads to irresponsibility attitudes. Thank you.
Tolerates employees. Who is it? Is it in the chat?
Yes.
Okay. How far do you give tolerance to their employees when it leads to irresponsibility? Right. Wow. During this COVID situation. Well, during this situation, everything is turned upside down. But I don't think it gives people a license to be irresponsible, because we've still got our jobs to do. And okay, it may be harder for us to do our jobs, but nevertheless, we've still got tasks to do. And even though, as a leader, if we are doing a performance appraisal, and actually at the moment I was just writing my performance appraisal last night, it's very easy to say, well, I can't do that anymore. I can't do this because of this COVID stuff. But we have to try. And I think this teaching on Zoom and the Zoom environment, and still studying, and we have many students in Maastricht right now who are still sat in a dorm room looking at four walls rather than being with their friends in the classroom. And it'd be easy for them to say, well, I haven't got any motivation to do my studies, I'm not going to do anything anymore. But if I'm their teacher, their leader, I've got to say, I know it's hard, but you've got to find deep in yourself continued sense of responsibility to carry on. And if you want to, you look back after this, and you want to be proud of how you conducted yourself during this time, and how much responsibility you showed. And it sounds like it's an excuse to duck out and not do anything. Some people have adopted this excuse, or their relationships have deteriorated and they've been unable um, to be positive in their relationships and care about people. But I think as a leader, we have to find a way to motivate and help and inspire, and not tolerate irresponsibility, but not be very hard and fast about this. We've got to sort of understand that people's levels of responsibility are challenged and it's harder for them. But nevertheless, it's not an excuse for ducking out. Because, many people are saying this, oh, I can't go to work anymore because of the COVID. So I haven't got any money and, I can't look after my loved ones anymore. But, if you're a responsible parent, a carer, you've got to try to find a way. And you'd be amazed at how many kind of opportunities there are for people whose jobs don't exist anymore. And I was watching on TV yesterday a lady who was an opera singer, and could sing beautifully, but people don't go to the opera right now because the theatres and operas and everything are closed. So she volunteered to be a carer. Well, I mean, she gets pay is not huge, but she's visits older people in their homes who can't get out. And she's got 6 older people who she visits in their homes and makes sure they're eating their meals, that they have their medication, that they are warm and comfortable. And she goes around them all day, every day. And okay, maybe she sings her opera songs to them, but at least she's working and she's not just sitting at home complaining that she's not got her job anymore. So I think as a leader, we've got to show responsibility for ourselves, and we've also got to help other people to grasp the fact that they still have job responsibilities despite very challenging situations. And I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Jones, for your answer. Yeah, we're still waiting for questions if you still have. But if not, I think I would like to invite Dr. Jones to give like a sort of conclusion or to wrap up the session. Would you like to give that?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, because we're nearly 5
Yeah.
o'clock your time. Yeah. So what I would say to everybody is try to be positive, even though how difficult it is. Try to reach deep within yourself, your spiritual values, your perhaps some religious values, your caring as a human being, to think about others, not just yourself, and to think about how your behavior in this pandemic has reflected on you and your attitude towards people you work with and loved ones. And this element of leadership, of being inspirational and motivational, we can all do this in our own small way. So I'd like you all to strive towards being a kind of leader in your own way, be authentic, and help others around you who are perhaps less strong than you, and keep being upbeat, positive, and caring. I think that's what I'd like to end with. And thank you for listening and being all together this nice afternoon in sunny Jakarta.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very moving advice. Oh, we have here a message from Nur Fitria. She said, very interesting talk, Dr. Jones. I didn't realize how much pressure I have because of this pandemic until I read the first part of your slide. I feel that I'm not as good at work as before the pandemic. So far, I don't think I have been a good leader. I'm still figuring out what the best thing to do as a leader in this time while I'm still struggling with the work from home mode. The talk and discussion have charged and motivated me. Thank you so much. Oh, what a lovely message from Nutrifit.
Great,
Thank you very
great.
much.
Oh, I'm very happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good, very good closing remarks for our session today. But before I close this session, I would like to, of course, thank you to thank Dr. Jones for participating in our online series. Very pleased to have you here, and would like to also invite the participants to answer the survey that I just shared with you. It's yeah, it's will be less than 3 minutes to fill in the survey. So just to have feedback for our upcoming event. Also, just to also very thank you so much to the participants that joined us today. And we would like to invite you also, if you like, if you are interested, we have an event next week on Wednesday, 17th of March. It's a program talk, and we will be talking about studying arts and culture in the Netherlands. So if you are interested, feel free to register through our website. So, okay, I think everyone has filled in the survey. So I will end the polling. And yeah, so thank you again for joining this session, Study in Holland online series, online learning. And yeah, we will see you in the next event. So bye-bye.
Okay, bye everybody. Thank you for listening. So will you close the meeting?